When you were first taught Magic the Gathering, you were probably taught that in order to win, you had to get your opponent's life total to 0. The majority of games do end this way, but there are other fringe ways to win the game. Most commonly out of these, if a player has 0 cards in their deck and they have to draw a card, they lose the game. A lot of players like playing to this win condition since it's interesting to win in unique ways. A common strategy that wins this way is called Mill, which consists of playing cards like Glimpse the Unthinkable that put cards from your opponent's deck into the graveyard. The main issue with this strategy is that using a card to mill your opponent is card disadvantage, meaning if you don't win from their deck going to 0, you're going to be behind on resources and likely lose. With very few exceptions, this archetype has always been worse than Burn, which is a similar critical mass deck that intends to directly deal 20 damage to the opponent. This is because burn spells quite often double as removal spells for threatening creatures, whereas mill spells do not. However, you can also run your opponent out of cards by simply letting them cast every spell in their deck and playing high value reactive spells to make it so that they can't kill you. This concept is called control, and while control decks usually still win through damage, there are a few exceptions. Perhaps the most notable exception was Yvonne Floch's Pro Tour winning blue-white control list that plays Elixir of Immortality to make sure his opponent runs out of cards before him. The deck could theoretically fit creatures that properly deal 20 damage to his opponent in it, but that'd take away from deck slots dedicated to playing an efficient control plan. Elixir allows Yvonne to win the game after gaining a resource advantage while only needing 1 deck slot, whereas a creature plan would need to take a lot more space, as it's dubious to rely on a single creature to win the game in a format with removal. The deck makes sure it doesn't get run over in the early game by casting single target removal spells like Last Breath and Azorius Charm in the first few turns of the game. After the opponent is able to start putting several creatures onto the board at once, the deck can destroy all of them with Supreme Verdict and Planar Cleansing, often coupled with Quicken to represent instant speed interaction during the opponent's turn before casting a board wipe on the opponent's end step if necessary. The deck also plays counterspells such as Syncopate and Dissolve to proactively deal with annoying spells. Notably, planeswalkers like Xenagos the Reveler and enchantments like Underworld Connections are quite annoying for this deck to reactively answer outside of Planar Cleansing. After the deck has made several land drops and is no longer under much pressure, it can close the game with card advantageous spells such as Jace Architect of Thought and Sphinx's Revelation. The deck likely couldn't exist without the latter, as it needs a way to pull ahead in resources after achieving parity, and Revelation is an extremely efficient way to do so. This deck technically has a couple other ways of winning, although they're much less consistent, those being Mutavaults, which can slowly chip away at the opponent after the board is cleared, and Jace Architect of Thought's -8 ability, which can take an opponent's most powerful card and win with that. Realistically, this deck still needs the 1 copy of Elixir though, as this deck draws so many cards off Sphinx's Revelation that it risks running out of cards itself if the Mutavault plan is too slow, or if the other win conditions are answered somehow, for example. Playing the 1 deck slot dedicated for Elixir means the deck can focus solely on playing reactive magic rather than worrying about turning the corner. Post-sideboard, Floch has several more traditional ways to win the game, such as Elspeth, Sun's Champion, which puts a ton of power in play every turn, and the combination of Nyx Fleece Rams and Archangel of Thune, which are both strong defensive creatures that can quickly close a game if unanswered. Using a creative win condition, Floch was able to win Pro Tour Magic 2015. Let me know in the comments what you want to hear about next.